I want to start with a quote from Tom Waits. The world is a hellish place, and bad writing is destroying the quality of our suffering. So, I actually, in a book of odes, I actually wrote an ode to Bukowski. For making it okay to be myself by being so much worse. For showing me that PhDs mostly just know a lot more about one or two things and often sacrifice by knowing a lot less about the stuff that makes life bearable. For so many books that read like ice cream. Oh, Bukowski, I know they're bad for me, but God, I love them. And for writing lines like angels are flying low tonight with burning wings. Or lines like, love breaks my bones and I laugh. You were the unforgivable chauvinistic prophet stoned by the city gates for the rest of us who are all just as unredeemable. So, I want to, it's not, everything as it goes along in a row here is not going to be, have the word Bukowski in it. I'm just going to go on the spirit of things. So immediately following that ode happens to be the ode to spam. Oh, mystery meat, mostly pork shoulder with nitrates and nitrites. Oh, 48 grams of total fat, by the way, skillet fried with apples, onion, and pineapple bits. I do not know why, but here on a Tuesday, listening to Casey and the Sunshine Band sing Afternoon Delight, I now vaguely recall cutting you into cubes and stuffing you into a hollowed-out pineapple to bake in the coals of a dying campfire in my mopey youth. Was it Cub Scouts or church camp or some other torture? The things we called food back in the 1970s confound the imagination. Back when the petroleum and food industries were indistinguishable from each other. Ode to the white man. You are your favorite dream that cannot come true because you never were to begin with. In the few degrees of separation required for humans to continue walking up on hind legs, somewhere in your past, some Spaniard slept with an Egyptian maid who gave birth to a son, who then slept with a don't-you-know-it Cherokee princess, who gave birth to a daughter, who made love to the idea of what you want to believe you are. And that idea accomplished some nice things. Minneapolis is beautiful in early summer. But you remain an idea, which remains an idea you seem unable to grasp. So, Bukowski even found his way into a book of prayers that I wrote, Honest Day's Prayer. This is called One More for the Road. Thank you for this one last book by Charles Bukowski that I have not read yet. That I have kept on the shelf without opening it because I don't want to see him go. Alas, I must bend its back since I am getting too old to put this off any longer and since he died in 1994. Therefore, there is no way to squeeze another from him. All good things, even angry poets, must come to their untimely end. He just seemed too mean to die. So I can't do a panel on Bukowski without going into my shadow self, who is based on a real person, however, so it's very convoluted. It's a 3-book series that all have the same subtitle, The Mostly Unedited Poems of Ezra E. Lipschitz, who is an angry hermit that lives on the border of New Mexico and Colorado, somewhere near Archuleta Mesa, where the U.S. government, by the way, is conducting conferences and things with aliens underground inside the mountain. Google Archuleta Mesa if you think I'm lying. It's a crazy place. So here's a poem from Ezra E. Lipschitz. A funny thing. When she smiles, it's through a strange arrangement of her eyes, nose, and mouth working in tandem. The eyes narrow just a hair, the nostrils flare into little ovals, and the lips purse, partway open, into an eerie geometry that reminds me of the Joker in a Batman comic. She never allows the corners of her mouth to lift, no matter how funny something may be. Like me falling on ice in a parking lot one time, it brought her great joy, but only the glint of a pucker. Because she'd read in an article in an Oprah magazine long ago that smiling causes wrinkles. All those years, half enjoyed. The new evolution. I can imagine the world without men in it. Women being the sex most likely to figure out how to procreate without the other. How beautiful that world where no man beats his chest after murdering one of his own because God had told him to. A woman would have taken issue with God instead, reprimanding him for his petty ideas and childish means of doing business. A world filled with penises all stood up with nowhere to go would leave them no choice but to turn on each other, since there's no way not to shake that single imperative in our biological madness. Women, having learned eons ago how to take care of their own, would be fine with another, or alone at home, or by the beach, or between the strong legs of summer's hard trees, glowing before, during, and afterward in a peace and sense of fulfillment that men have never known. And the sad habit of males to forge steel into weapons is far inferior to a woman's ability to end all differences with a solid stare, saving the steel for better uses. It is enough almost for me to want to die as a measly gesture of goodwill, a way to help ease the world toward the inevitable. Another poem from Ezra, Ode to Assholes. I hear you, you men I am forced to admit a biological link to, you who joke about wives and bitch about sexless lives, and how when the children arrive, the clothes never come off, thinking it's the kids' fault somehow and not yours. You who have taken refuge in cheap beer and football in front of 55 big screen TVs down at Buffalo Wild Wings, you who voted for Trump because you wanted change in everyone else's house but your own. You who have mistaken the barrel of your AK-47 for your dick that is considerably shorter and much less accurate. You who molest women walking down sidewalks with whistles and grunts from the driver's side window of your piece of shit pickups, forgetting that your 11-year-old daughter is sitting next to you. You who cannot see past your stomach to piss. There is, never was, and never will be an excuse for you. And all the world, including God himself, is just waiting for you to die. I want to take a turn on the other side here. This is called Like Totally. So these girls at Higher Ground Coffee Shop in Pagosa Springs are like telling this other girlfriend at the next table about the book, The Screw Tape Letters, that's by the same dude who wrote like Narnia and all that stuff. And anyway, it's like really awesome because like God is the enemy and the main character is like a demon, you know? And it's just like, well, really, really deep, and you should totally check it out. And some other girl then remembers, wasn't it like C.S. Lewis who wrote it? And the first says, oh, totally, because didn't he write like Mere Christianity and all that? Ooh, like yes, because wasn't he a total atheist or something who then like totally became a believer? Oh my God, yes. Okay. Last poem from Ezra here. No, let's see. Here we go. Okay. Here's one quickly that warms up to the next one. It's very short. It's called Exhausted. We'll need a team of scientists to set up the study and begin running the calculations on the percentage of a degree that the Earth's temperature rises every time Pres Trump opens his godforsaken mouth. Many of them already fear it could be a leading cause of climate change by the middle of his first term in office. And while some believe that a specialized filtration system with a sizable muffler hooked up to his inexhaustible pipe could do the trick, others propose it could possibly be harnessed as a renewable energy source. This poem, I have had the privilege of actually receiving physical threats to my person during a reading in Oklahoma City one time. It's called A Quick Question. Soon enough, I'll be heading back up to the cabin, and by virtue of not having a television, I'll begin to care a lot less about which incompetent among the many is now running the U.S. machine. But before I go, I would like to address this new president directly for the sake of my daughter. I have a daughter, sir, a daughter that, because of life and an odd ex-wife, I wasn't allowed to meet until she was 18. A daughter I met because she was a recent survivor of you and your goddamn ilk of pussy grabbers, men who believe their hands come with badges. A daughter I met because my ex did not see me, bad as I was, as being the thorough degenerate that you appear to be, sir. And I say sir only because you're 10 years older than me and about to become president. If I were just 1 year older than you, I'd call you Sonny, if not little shit. And even if you are older, I'll give you fair warning, sir, that if I ever get close enough to pull it off, I am going to grab you by the balls and squeeze until your eyes turn a deeper shade of red than they are. And then before the Secret Service knocks me down, I'll ask in a guttural hush, how do you like it, Sonny? Right, so, lighten up. This is from an older book called To Sing Hallucinated First Thoughts on Last Words. It's a collection of poetry where every poem in the book deals with some famous person's last words. And so, Charles Bukowski's gravestone reads simply, "Don't try." That's it. It's a little plaque in the grass. And very hard to find for those of you who tried to do it. It's very difficult to find. I spent a couple of hours one day. I had a liter bottle of tequila poking out of a backpack, and I'm walking around the cemetery, and I finally gave up, and I went back to the kiosk near the front entrance or whatever. And as I was walking up, I'd kind of forgotten about my backpack and how demonstrative it was with the head of the tequila bottle poking out the top. And as I approached the kiosk, the guard came walking out and said, "Bukowski?" Yes, sir. Yeah, I owe him a drink. So, this is for Bukowski's. It's Charles Bukowski's gravestone, 1994. Don't try. To spend even a minute pondering what he might have meant would be to ignore his advice. Tricky bastard, that Bukowski. So forget about him. He's dead. Which would also be his advice, if ghosts were prone to giving it. And his epitaph does remind me of something Dad told me long ago, right after a more than upstanding deacon stormed out of his study at the church in a thick cloud of righteous indignation. Man, that guy is going to overshoot heaven as sure as hell. A little while back, I actually co-wrote a book of poetry with a fellow songwriter in Austin, a guy who's sort of Charles Bukowski reincarnated in a way, a guy named John D. Graham, who's a wonderful Austin songwriter. I found out he was a Bukowski fan. We wrote a book together that the title of the book is Don't Try. And what we did, how we wrote the book, was that we stole from Bukowski, just stole lines from him, use them as the title, and then John D. and I would both write in response to that title. Sometimes the stanzas go in and out of each other, and sometimes we each wrote our own version. Give you just, not to read the poems, give you a few titles here of Bukowski lines. I think of guitars under the sea, the laughter of the hidden gods. I see Hemingway cleaning his shotgun. And you can see the wrecking ball of dreams. You can kind of see where this would go. I'm just going to read the poem very quickly. It's me and John D. kind of going back and forth a little bit. The poem from the Bukowski line, every time my toilet flushes. Lake Thunderbird drops another inch. Someone somewhere thinks of their grandfather. Every time my toilet flushes, they can hear it, says Bukowski. I wait there a minute or two and then jiggle the handle. Every time my toilet flushes, I feel like I've lost yet another part of me. A small voice I can't stand says, "What now?" I remember the day I deposited my dissertation in the bowels of the library. It's easier to pretend there are no consequences. I think of her last words to me. So, let's see if I can find a couple of very short, one short one, here we go. Not our fault. This is back to Ezra E. Lipschitz. Oh my God, do you have to write about politics and religion so much, she asks. Why do poets always do that? The girl from West Virginia has a way of saying poets like she's spitting out husks of wet sunflower seeds. And I tell her, well, when the subject of love dries up, there are only two topics left. Another Ezra poem. What would Bukowski do? At some reading in a bar just off some campus grounds that I stupidly offered to do, a wiry-headed, tweed-jacketed old academic whose poems died decades ago came up, martini in his right hand, and slurred through spit, "Man, all you'd have to do to make that one poem work is to... ... and he followed with this, that, and some other pedantic thing, and so I scratched down a few hard mental notes, so when it comes time to revise it, I could avoid every damn suggestion. And then I busted a beer bottle over his skull. The poems I'm reading at the moment are from Ezra Lipschitz's second book, which is called Ars Poetica. And the spelling of ars is critical, and I would like to thank the Brits for the wonderful double entendre for that. So here's a poem. Ezra isn't a big fan of what we are doing right now. So I thought I would give you his version if he were sitting back there and listening to me right now. This is kind of what he would say. In Session 2 is the title. 10 a.m. he introduces the first reader. 10:03. She tells us that she pubesced in the wrong decade for music, a time when U2 was the warm-up band for Flock of Seagulls, though she had loved that one hit of theirs, Space Age Love Song. 10:07. She tells us that doesn't have anything to do with the poem she's about to read, but it's about music, sort of, because there was this one time, 10:12. Anyway, the poem really is more about her grandmother, the way she used to fry chicken to the Glenn Campbell show, and how the overall doneness of the breasts and thighs had to do with the timing of commercial breaks. 10:17 a.m. So, I guess I should just read the poem now, she says. But we need to know, in order to understand the fourth stanza, how tricky it was for Grandma to light this particular kind of gas stove that had a pilot light that would go out if a mouse sneezed over on the other side of the kitchen. Laugh at own joke. 10:23. She reads the poem that lasts about 53 seconds. So, this is Ezra's third book, and it's called Apocalypse Soon, just in case you didn't know he was angry. And I want to read for our speculative poets. This is not a speculative poem, but in honor of Juan. This is called Beam Us Up. Dear Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, never have we hoped you might come true more than we do now. Even though your forced and melodramatic delivery was difficult to take at times, even though some of the costumes, special effects, and those crazy dudes with the massive throbbing eggheads were over the top. And yet, I must admit that that very green alien dancing slave girl was hotter than we are all about to be. I believe the laureate even wrote an ode to her one time. Oh, Captain, my Captain, where are you now in our hour of ruin? Oh, Kirk, oh, Picard, Skywalker, Han Solo, we'll take anybody. And even though I may have mixed up my Star Treks and wars, we need a backup planet, and we need it now. And we mean it, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are our only hope.